Well, hello everyone, I'm Postmaster Radio, and it's time once again, ladies and gents, to bring on the funny. You're listening to Ujokes Weekly. This is the official podcast highlighting Jonathan Mangum's virtual comedy show Ujokes, where comedians compete for the best joke, but that's not all, folks. You guys and gals playing as part of the Ujokes audience, whether on YouTube, Facebook, or even Twitch, you all have a chance to take the crown of comedy as well. It's comedy gold at your fingertips. Before we start today's podcast, I want to make a quick apology for unexpectedly taking a break from the Ujokes podcast for the last little while. I did not expect to go on hiatus for the past couple of weeks. Kind of something that happened at the absolute last minute. But anyway, I am back now. However, as a result of the little mini break, we have not one but two new Ujoke shows to discuss. Last week's show with JElvisWeinstein and Andy Kindler, and this week's show with returning Ujokes player Atsuko Okatsuka and David Stores. Gonna be a great podcast today, but before we do get started, a reminder, of course, to check out new episodes of Ujokes. The next show is coming up on Monday night, May 24th at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 Eastern. Don't forget to catch up on the Ujokes podcast. Link to the other most recent podcast in the description, along with the link to the Ujokes YouTube channel for any of you on YouTube that are interested in playing along live on the next Ujokes show. If this is your first time listening to the Ujokes podcast and you happen to be listening from Apple Podcasts or Podchaser, please leave a rating and review. And if this is not your first time listening to the Ujokes podcast, well, thank you so much for coming back. It really means a lot. And you know how this works. We have the top 5 countdown followed by the Ujokes Awards. And because we're dealing with 2 Ujokes shows today, not just one, we have a couple of Ujokes extras that did not make it onto the countdown that I would also like to mention as well. But we'll get to that later, of course. Right now, we begin with the top 5 countdown, which usually is for the top 5 Ujokes jokes or games, depending on the circumstances, from that one Ujoke show of the week. But because, again, we're dealing with 2 Ujoke shows, this countdown is going to be kind of a blend of this week's and last week's shows. Keep that in mind. But right now, let's get started. Enough chit-chat. At spot numero 5 on the countdown, we go to JElvisWeinstein. Name the movie. Now, of course, this was from last week's Ujoke show. Here's the joke at hand. It is for the picture of a woman who appears to be resting on a hospital bed that is attached to a piano, and she's just playing the piano. And don't ask me to go any further into the pick, this insane pick. Keep in mind, Jonathan's producer, Josh, is in charge of the pick, so he may or may not have a better idea of what the hell is happening here than I do. But anyway, JElvisWeinstein, this was his joke.
This is clearly from the classic 1937 movie Sheet Music. This is the classic scene, I can't believe you're spoiler alerting, where she wakes up with a piano after a failed organ transplant.
That is a good one there, sir.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that joke hit all of the right notes. Did it not? Bravo to JElvisWeinstein. Now moving on to this week's Ujoke show at spot 4 on the countdown, we go to a game called Ruined Date. Now, in this game, based on the picture of 2 dogs on a motorcycle, you have to answer one simple question: what was said by either dog that ruined said date? And for this next joke, we go to team audience, David Smolensky. I don't have thumbs, so we can't stop. Uh-oh. Well, first of all, let me just say, I hope this doggy date did not end tragically based on the joke, but fear of that aside, congratulations to David Smolensky. That was a pretty good joke for that game of Ujokes. It also happened to be the winning joke for the game Ruined Date. So yeah, well done to David. We'll come back to that game in just a moment, but continuing the Ujokes countdown at spot numero 3, number 3, we go to somebody who should sound familiar, a little bit anyway, in the Ujokes fandom, or at least among the Ujokes audience, if you have been playing and watching the show since God knows how long. I am talking about Josh Bagley in the house, y'all. Ayo, in the house of comedy. Now, before we get to Josh Bagley's joke, a bit of a quick note because this ties in with last show's best. Yes, I know, they retooled it as last week's best, but I'm just calling it last show's best still. Why the hell not? No bit of difference. Anyway, for last show's best, unfortunately, not everyone can compete on Ujokes Live. It's a sad truth, but true nonetheless. But that's okay, because if you happen to be watching this show after the fact, that's no problem, pas de problème. Just simply type in your joke via the YouTube comment section, and whether it be the jokes from this week's show or any mini challenges on Jonathan's Facebook page or the Ujokes YouTube channel community page, submit a joke for either one. Jonathan and his producer Josh will go back and look through all of the jokes, and whichever joke is deemed number one, whoever submitted that joke will be invited to compete on the next Ujokes show. Now, yes, if you're able to compete live, that's good and well, but you actually get to meet Jonathan and compete against the comedians and against Team Audience, an honor that very few people have had. I, of course, include myself in that list, but that's another story. Anyway, Josh Bagley's joke at hand, it's a new game called JingALong, where based on the product, in this case Hide-a-Poo, you have to come up with the catchiest and most funniest jingle imaginable. Josh Bagley may have had Britney Spears on his mind for this, and this was one hell of a joke. Poops, I hit it again. And no, I am not good at singing along to Britney Spears songs. That much is obvious. But still, what a great joke from Josh Bagley. Well done, my man. Oh, and also, bonus shout out to you, Josh. I gotta give you props because this is now the 4th time that Josh has been on the show / last show's best. I think we now have a new record for the most amount of times that someone from the Ujokes audience has been last show's best. I could be mistaken, but I believe that's the current record. Well done. Now for spot number 2 on the countdown, we go back to Ruined Date. You know that pic with the dogs on the motorcycle? Well, for Atsuko Okatsuka, she thinks it's the dog driving the motorcycle that ruined the date.
How'll I ever live without you? Howl.
Aww.
In which the dog behind him lets herself go and flies away.
So you mean lands on the concrete and splits apart?
Yeah, then hearing any more dog puns coming out of that driver.
Yes. She's sick of his puns and pulls an Awakenings style and literature narrative, except not into the ocean, into the concrete. Boy, I haven't read that book in a long time.
Yeah, you might think Atsuko was barking up the wrong tree, but no. She did a great job. Gotta give you props, Atsuko, and this is why she is indeed a formidable Ujokes competitor. No, she was not the ultimate winner of the night, but who the hell cares? It was great to see Atsuko again, and I hope she comes back again in the near future on Ujokes, which definitely seems possible. Can't be the only one who thinks that. And finally, at spot number 1 on the countdown, back to last week's Ujokes show, and like I said at the beginning of the podcast, full-length games can be considered. It is definitely possible for this to happen. JingALong, 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 JingALong. That same Hide-a-Poo product we mentioned, we know that Josh Bagley had a crack at that, and that's how he got on to this week's show, part of last week's best. Now let's see how last week's comedians did, including, of course, Team Audience, starting off with JElvisWeinstein.
Oh, it's a house. It's Hide-a-Poo, yeah. It's a place for your poo to hang out. Yeah, it's a house.
It's a house. And they pay a shitload of money for the right to use that song, too.
Absolutely.
Andy.
If you're looking for a way to hide feces, dog feces, and you also love pictures of poo on a box, get the Hide-a-Poo, get the Hide-a-Poo. You like bathroom humor, and you like ugly pictures. Hooray! Yeah!
Strong.
That's wrong?
Strong.
No, strong, I said.
Let's go to the audience. Josh, producer Josh, pull out a good joke from the audience. Eon Barrel, don't need a loo, don't need to sue, it's Hide-a-Poo. Yeah! Don't need a loo, don't need to sue.
Don't need to sue. That's
are all
catchy.
good.
Yeah, honestly, those were some really great jokes. Now, if you did ask me to pick a winner, well, then you'd have to get back to me in 10 years or so. Yeah, that is not an easy decision. Anyway, great game of JingALong. And with that being said, that's it for the Ujokes Top 5 Countdown. Now we go on to the Ujokes Awards. First up is Comedian of the Week. Now, for the comedians to have a shot, they must make the countdown at least once. For this Top 5 Countdown focusing only on this week's Ujokes show, David Storrs may have had a better chance of at least being in the running. Ultimately, he does not. Today, sorry, win the Comedian of the Week award, but we will get to one of his jokes in a little bit for Ujokes Extra, so stick around for that. Coming down now to the remaining batch of comedians, a tough call between, in the end, JElvisWeinstein and Atsuko Okatsuka, but I think I'm gonna have to go with JElvisWeinstein. Hard to beat his jokes from Name the Movie and JingALong, but again, honorable shout out to Atsuko Okatsuka. For the Audience Award, the best joke to come from the Ujokes audience, gonna give it to Josh Bagley's Last Show's Best for the Hide-a-Poo Britney Spears joke. And as for a Mangum moment, the award entirely centered on Jonathan Mangum. Well, we have a doozy of a Mangum moment for you. Honorable shout out to Jonathan doing the jingle for Team Audience on JingALong, but in the end, I gotta give it to this admittedly bizarre Mangum moment, but nevertheless a funny one at that. This was from a brand new game from this week's show called Sounds Like Something. This is an audio clue thing in which, based on this sound, you'd have to figure out what that sound was. Now, obviously we know that this sound is from a video game. Somebody just lost a life in said video game, but that's not a funny answer. It could be a good answer, but it's not a funny one. Now, had Jonathan actually been playing in that game of Sounds Like Something, I'm not sure if he would have won. No offense to the marvelous Jonathan Mangum, but it at least allowed us to learn maybe a little bit too much, I don't know, but we definitely learned a little something about Grandpa Mangum.
That sound, actually, my joke is very similar, but that's the kind of sound I hear every time I think about my grandfather having sex.
There you go.
More often than I'd like.
Oh, which reminds me, sorry, I couldn't resist. It's a fun sound effect. But either way, folks, as funny as that was, we now know, never think about Jonathan Mangum's grandpa. Hell no. Okay, so that's that for the Ujokes Awards. Now for those two jokes that almost made the Ujokes countdown, but did not. First, going to David Storrs, you may have noticed that we didn't get to his joke from Ruined Date. Well, here it is now.
I'm assuming the dog in the back with the pink scarf, that's who's going to be ruining this date. Your hog is a lot smaller than I thought it would be.
Oh, that would definitely ruin the date. That would, do one of those.
And still on this week's Ujoke show, shout out to Joey Henson on the YouTube chat for Team Audience from another fairly new game that debuted a couple of weeks ago, Pardonnez-moi. This is a game in which, based on the picture of a man swallowing a sword, I'm not sure if he's a magician, but that's unimportant based on that pic, gotta figure out the title of the memoir, which in this case, for Joey, he thought it was Swallow and Proceed with Caution. Great joke from Joey. That's it for Ujokes Extras, and folks, we are done with this week's Ujokes podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you had a great time. But before we say adios, a couple of final announcements. First, for more Ujokes fun. Of course, as I mentioned, if you can tune in live, it'd be great if you did. Next show coming up Monday, May 24th at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern. There is also Ujokes' sister show on that same Ujokes YouTube channel, FMK Champs, hosted by college humorist Carolyn Page. New episodes of that live at 7 p.m. Pacific for Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. And coming soon in June, another comedy game show called High Joke Score, where jokes equal cash. For more Ujokes fun, visit ujokes.com, the official Ujokes website as created by Ujokes fanatic Craig in the UK. And to stay up to date with my Ujokes podcast, like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review to stay engaged with me by following me on Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Podchaser. And of course, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Postmaster Radio. The account links are all in the description. Thanks again for listening, and until we meet again, well, bye for now. See ya!